Welcome to Iraqi Dinar Update, your go-to source for the latest news, expert insights, and real-time developments on Iraq's currency, economy, and financial reforms. Whether you're a long-time investor or just curious about the dinar, you're in the right place. The recent U.S. news reports have raised serious alarms, especially regarding the threat made by certain militias to potentially shut down the Strait of Hormuz, a vital artery through which much of the world's oil supply flows. This isn't just another headline. This is a potentially devastating development that could reshape the economic, geopolitical, and energy landscape, especially for a country like Iraq, which depends so heavily on oil exports for its fiscal stability and monetary policy. To understand the gravity of this situation, we must explore the role of the Strait of Hormuz, Iraq's dependency on oil exports, and the interconnected fragility of oil logistics and currency stability, especially in a country like Iraq that is still in the early stages of reintegration into the global financial system. The Strait of Hormuz is arguably the most strategically important choke point in the global energy supply chain. It lies between Oman and Iran and serves as the passageway for nearly 20% of the world's petroleum. In fact, at peak flow, more than 20 million barrels of oil per day pass through this narrow strait. This includes oil not only from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the UAE, and Qatar, but critically, Iraq as well. Iraq, being one of the world's largest oil producers, relies heavily on access to maritime shipping lanes through the Persian Gulf. Any disruption at Hormuz would affect Iraq's ability to deliver oil to international markets, regardless of how much oil it pumps or how high global oil prices may rise in response to regional tensions. This creates a catastrophic risk scenario for Iraq, especially at this sensitive moment in its economic development. The country has been working diligently to rebuild its banking infrastructure, improve monetary transparency, and stabilize the Iraqi dinar (IQD). Under the guidance of the Central Bank of Iraq (CBI), and with cooperation from international partners like the International Monetary Fund and the U.S. Treasury, Iraq has been striving to modernize its payment systems, attract foreign investment, and move toward full international reintegration. What makes this more dangerous is the psychological and investor confidence aspect. Investors, institutions, and even regional trading partners are watching Iraq closely. Even worse, this could trigger a direct impact on the value and purchasing power of the Iraqi dinar. A country's currency is only as strong as its economic fundamentals. The dinar has long been criticized for being artificially managed, constrained by capital controls, and not freely traded internationally. The central bank has been trying to shift away from these problems by implementing new regulatory standards, limiting dollar smuggling, and controlling inflation. Imagine the implications if Iraq suddenly cannot sell oil for 2 or 3 weeks. Foreign reserves would be drained quickly to cover basic government operations. That's salaries for civil servants, funding for public services, military operations, and social programs. If this extends to 2 or 3 months, the country could be forced to deplete foreign currency reserves just to avoid a fiscal collapse. That would immediately weaken the central bank's ability to defend the dinar's value. In a worst-case scenario, this could lead to runaway devaluation of the IQD, mass inflation, and political unrest. Let's talk also about the speculative community, those who have invested in the dinar, both inside and outside Iraq. Many of these investors are banking on Iraq's oil wealth and future reforms to drive a revaluation or at least gradual appreciation of the currency. But if Iraq's oil can't be exported, the entire premise of those future expectations collapses. No country can raise the value of its currency while hemorrhaging revenue. In fact, the reverse happens. The country is often forced to devalue or print more currency to stay afloat, leading to inflation and worsening exchange rates. This is the paradox Iraq finds itself in. High oil prices typically bode well for an oil-exporting country. They allow governments to increase spending, boost reserves, and stabilize the currency. But when those prices spike due to a shipping blockade, and the country can't get oil to market, those higher prices become irrelevant. They become a cruel joke, a symbol of what could have been. Iraq could sit on billions of barrels of oil worth a fortune on paper, but if they can't ship it, it might as well not exist. There's also a geopolitical dimension. If militias aligned with or influenced by Iran are behind this threat, it introduces a new layer of complexity. Iraq is diplomatically walking a tightrope between the United States and Iran. Its security apparatus, economy, and political structure are entangled with both powers. A militia disruption at Hormuz, especially if traced to Iranian-backed groups, puts Baghdad in an impossible position. It forces Iraq to choose between condemning the blockade and risking regional tensions or staying silent and losing Western trust. Either path has consequences for the economy and the dinar. Let's also consider global market reactions. If the Strait of Hormuz were blocked or even partially disrupted, global oil markets would panic. Prices could jump by $20 to $50 per barrel in days. Shipping insurers would raise rates. Energy security would become a global concern. In this environment, smaller oil exporters like Iraq that depend on Gulf shipping routes would suffer disproportionate harm. The timing of all this is especially cruel. Iraq is right now at a turning point. It's finalizing payments reform. It's modernizing its banks. It's pushing for WTO accession. It's integrating digital platforms, central bank protocols, and is launching its digital dinar framework. This momentum could all be lost if oil revenues stop. Foreign investors will walk away. Domestic reformers will lose political capital. Populations already burdened by years of hardship may lose patience. Finally, this crisis, if it unfolds, should be a wake-up call to Iraq's leadership and the international community. Iraq needs redundancy in its export infrastructure. Over-reliance on the Persian Gulf is a national security risk. Iraq must expedite efforts to build alternative pipelines through Turkey, Jordan, and Syria, despite their own geopolitical risks. It must strengthen internal production logistics, refine its own crude locally, and begin moving toward a more diversified economy. Only then can Iraq shield itself from such external shocks. The Iraqi dinar's long-term value will not come from speculation or temporary oil booms. It will come from structural economic strength, diversification, and political maturity. All of that is jeopardized by this threat at Hormuz. So while news of a militia blocking oil might seem remote or abstract to some, it is, in reality, an existential threat to Iraq's economy and currency. The stakes could not be higher. Iraq needs global support, internal resolve, and a clear strategy now more than ever if it hopes to survive and thrive in the face of this looming crisis. Thanks for tuning into Iraqi Dinar Update. If you found this content helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a beat on Iraq's evolving financial landscape. Stay informed and stay ready.